All right, ready for a deep dive into the world of Friedrich Nietzsche? You send in some really interesting excerpts from Nietzsche, ECCE HOMO, and his visions on life.txt. Looks like you're interested in those powerful life lessons his work's known for.
Yeah, that's right. This document, it seems to cover a lot of his core ideas. And Nietzsche's not exactly known for holding back, so get ready. This is going to be intense.
Yeah, I'm seeing a mix here. Nietzsche's own words about his life, how he approached writing, and then alongside that, we've got interpretations of his big ideas.
So it's not just the philosophy itself, right? It's like a window into the man behind it all.
Bit of a personal touch, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that'll help to really grasp, who this guy was, this influential thinker.
Yeah, I mean, to really get Nietzsche, you got to understand that connection. His life, his experiences, they weren't just like background noise.
Woven right in.
Absolutely, into the very fabric of his philosophy.
Right off the bat, this source material, it jumps into Nietzsche's personal journey. He talks about how his health, his family, even the places he chose to live, they all shaped his philosophical ideas. It's a pretty heavy stuff in here. For example, he talks about hitting this minimum point in his life at age 36.
And get this, that was the same age his father died.
Wow.
He even talks about his father's frailty contrasted with his own growing old, almost as if he's embodying like both life and death simultaneously.
Yeah, I get that. Heavy image, right. And then he goes on to talk about illness as if it were like predestination, almost like this necessary thing for him to develop his unique worldview.
It's so fascinating, right? Because most people, they shy away from suffering, right?
Yeah.
But Nietzsche, he saw it as a fundamental part of being human.
Even a potential, a catalyst for growth.
Exactly. He actually believed those periods of intense pain made him think more clearly.
And he even says that Aurora, one of his works, considered one of his best, that it came out of a period of intense turmoil, both physically and emotionally.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? If he thought that like great creative output, required some level of suffering.
Yeah, deep stuff. So knowing all that, that Nietzsche saw his own struggles as so important to his philosophy, it kind of makes sense that his concept of the will to power is all about this overcoming limitations thing, right?
Totally. The source material breaks it down, the will to power, as a driving force behind all of life. Not just about domination or control, though. It's more like this inherent desire within every living thing to grow, to expand, to become its full potential.
Imagine like a cosmic DVR, rewinding and replaying your life infinitely. Would you want to fast forward any parts? It's like that Nietzsche's eternal recurrence concept. Makes you face whether you're really living a life you truly affirm.
Yeah, I mean, think of a plant reaching for sunlight, right? Or an entrepreneur building a business, or an artist pouring their soul into a painting. These are all expressions of that will to power.
That really connects to the idea of individuality, too, which I'm seeing as so central for Nietzsche. It's like he's saying, don't just accept the limits placed on you, strive to become more.
Exactly. Become something greater. And for Nietzsche, a huge part of that becoming involved questioning the values we just inherit. He called this the transvaluation of values.
Whoa. Okay, so break that down for me.
It's a radical idea, but it boils down to this. What we usually think of as good or bad, right? Maybe those aren't absolute truths, but instead products of tradition, or those in power.
Not just blindly accepting the moral code we've been given. It's like stepping back and asking, where do my values really come from?
Yeah, like are they serving me or holding me back?
Wow, okay, so much to unpack here. But I gotta ask, we can't talk about Nietzsche without talking about the Übermensch, right? Or as some translate it, the Superman. Arguably his most famous and probably most misunderstood concept.
Right. And this document, it describes the Übermensch as someone who they transcend those ordinary human limitations, right? And in the process, they create new values. It's like the ultimate expression of that will to power we were just talking about. But, no capes or tights.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Is this just a fancy way of saying someone's really awesome, or is there more to it? Because honestly, transcending human limitations sounds a bit, superhuman.
It's easy to slip into those superhero comparisons, but Nietzsche wasn't thinking about physical stuff,
Yeah.
or like supernatural abilities. The Übermensch is more about an internal transformation.
Okay, more about.
A radical shift in values and a constant pursuit of mastering yourself.
Less about leaping tall buildings, more about pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible for ourselves and maybe for humanity as a whole.
Exactly. And it's important to remember the Übermensch isn't a literal being, It's more like an archetype.
Okay.
A symbol of what we could become. if we truly embrace our full potential.
Now, speaking of pushing boundaries, here's a concept that really stretches the mind. Eternal recurrence. It's this idea that we should live as if our lives would repeat infinitely. I don't know about you, but that kind of makes my head spin.
Oh, it's definitely a mind bender.
Mm.
But if we connect it back to the bigger picture, it's not meant to be taken literally.
More of a thought experiment.
Exactly. It's a way to check the authenticity of your choices.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you had to live your life over and over and over, would you change anything? Would you make the same decisions knowing you'd experience them eternally?
Whoa. Yeah, that's a powerful lens to view your life through, isn't it? Suddenly, those everyday choices, they take on a whole new weight.
It's not just about the immediate consequences, right? It's about the deeper meaning and value of our actions. And Nietzsche, he doesn't sugarcoat things either. He talks about the dark stuff too, the suffering, the tragedy, the feeling of meaninglessness a lot of people have in a world, well, without God. But instead of offering comfort, he gives us, well, a way to approach this. Active pessimism.
So, wait, so not denying the bad stuff, pretending it's not there. It's more about
Acknowledging those harsh realities,
Mm.
but choosing to live fully and deliberately despite them.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to get it. Active pessimism. It's like about using those difficult experiences to become stronger, right? More resilient rather than letting them define us or break us.
Exactly. It's about finding meaning and purpose within those experiences, not seeking comfort in some like external belief or distraction.
Which brings us back to personal responsibility, right? Nietzsche, he's not giving us a step-by-step guide to happiness, is he? He's more like...
He's challenging us to become the cartographers of our own lives.
Yes, exactly. This source material, it's loaded with examples of how to actually apply these ideas to daily life.
Yeah.
Stuff about embracing imperfection, creating your own values, rejecting, the herd mentality, and even finding joy in chaos.
And what's really cool is how Nietzsche's own routines and practices, they show just how deeply connected his philosophy was to his actual life. Like the way he approached reading, writing, even picking where to live, all reflected this commitment to living a life of self-creation.
Pretty clear message there. This isn't just some intellectual exercise, right? It's a call to action. He wants us to do something with these insights, to actually change our lives based on these powerful ideas.
It definitely asks a lot of us. Not a philosophy for the faint of heart. It demands that you engage with it, wrestle with it, and ultimately find a way to make it your own.
Okay, yeah, I feel that. So let's try to unpack some of these concepts a bit further, shall we? This whole transvaluation of values idea sounds radical, yeah, but what does it actually look like in practice?
Well, it's about questioning everything, especially those moral frameworks, the ones we've just inherited. Yeah. Think about those traditional values we often link with goodness. Humility, self-sacrifice, obedience to authority. Nietzsche would argue those might actually be harmful, especially if they lead us to deny our natural instincts, our desires.
Right, right. So instead of just accepting these prepackaged moral codes, often coming from religion, societal norms, it's more about building your own values based on what you believe is truly life-affirming, right?
Exactly. And this can be kind of unsettling, because it puts the responsibility for your own moral compass squarely on you. There's no external authority to lean on, no set of rules. You become the author of your own ethical code.
Now, the source material, it mentions how Nietzsche saw this whole transvaluation of values thing as a way to overcome what he called slave morality. Now, I've heard that term before, but honestly not sure I fully get it.
Okay, so Nietzsche, he believed that throughout history, there's been these two fundamental types of morality: master morality and slave morality. Master morality, it's rooted in strength, power, self-affirmation. It's about creating your own values and living by them, even if it means going against the grain.
And slave morality, that's the opposite then.
Yeah. Slave morality, it comes from resentment, a sense of powerlessness. It's the morality of, well, the oppressed, where values like humility, self-sacrifice, obedience, they're elevated because they're a way to cope with a lack of power. Nietzsche argued that Christianity, with all that emphasis on turning the other cheek, submitting to a higher power, it's a prime example of slave morality.
It wasn't just a personal thing for Nietzsche either. This slave morality, he saw it as a cultural force that he believed was leading to, the suppression of creativity, of bold thinking.
Right. He wanted to see us return to a more life-affirming, self-empowering kind of morality, one that embraces strength, creativity, and a celebration of the individual.
Makes me think about his Übermensch again. Seems like the Übermensch would be living that master morality, right? But the source material really stresses it's not about physical strength or dominating others.
Exactly. The Übermensch isn't some tyrant, some dictator. They're more like, I don't know, an artist, a creator, someone who shapes their own reality and lives by their own self-created values.
Okay, I like that. So maybe a better analogy than a superhero would be like a visionary artist or a really groundbreaking entrepreneur, someone who sees the world differently and has the guts to create something new and meaningful, even if it breaks with convention.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Think of someone like Leonardo da Vinci, not only an amazing artist, but an inventor, a scientist, a true Renaissance man, defied categories, pushed boundaries of what was considered possible in his time.
All right, I'm with you there. Let's circle back to that mind-bending concept of eternal recurrence. Still trying to wrap my head around that one.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. It forces us to really confront like the weight of our choices in a way we usually don't.
Hmm.
Imagine you're given the remote control to your life and there's one button, play again. Would you hesitate?
Honestly, I think I'd hit pause first, do some serious reflecting before hitting play again. But I see what you're getting at. It makes you think, am I living a life that I actually want to experience not just once, but over and over?
Exactly. And it's not about seeking approval or fitting into societal expectations. It's about crafting a life that you genuinely find fulfilling, a life that's worth repeating for all eternity.
That's a pretty high bar to set, huh? But I gotta say, it's motivating too. Shifts the focus from, outward achievements to this deeper sense of like internal alignment.
Absolutely. And you got to remember, Nietzsche doesn't sugarcoat things. He acknowledges that life's full of suffering, of tragedy, of moments that make us question everything. He even calls this worldview active pessimism.
Active pessimism. Sounds a bit contradictory. How can pessimism be active?
It's about confronting those harsh realities, head on, not falling into despair or trying to escape them. Imagine someone going through a really tough time. Instead of looking for distractions, clinging to illusions that make them feel better, they choose to face that pain directly, to feel it fully, and to learn whatever they can from that experience.
Okay, so it's more about using those difficult experiences to get stronger, right? Building resilience rather than letting those experiences break us.
Exactly. It's about finding meaning and purpose within those experiences, not looking for comfort in external beliefs or distractions.
This source material, it really emphasizes that Nietzsche doesn't just throw these heavy concepts at us and walk away, right? He actually gives a lot of practical advice on how to live this stuff out day to day. There's a lot about embracing imperfection, creating your own values, even finding joy in chaos.
And what I find so cool is how Nietzsche's own routines and practices, they show us how deeply connected his philosophy was to his everyday life. Like how he read, how he wrote, even where he chose to live. It all reflected this commitment to living a life of self-creation.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear message, isn't it? This is not just about thinking, it's about doing. Nietzsche wants us to take these ideas and use them to transform our lives.
Absolutely. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Now, one idea that really grabbed me is this concept of talking to the masters of the past. Sounds like he's advocating for a deep engagement with history and philosophy, but not just blindly accepting what's been said before,
They
right?
got it. It's about having a dialogue with those great thinkers, wrestling with their ideas, but ultimately finding your own voice in the process. Like, imagine a scientist studying Einstein or Newton, not just memorizing formulas, but building on those foundations, asking new questions, maybe even making new discoveries.
So it's about respecting tradition, but also being willing to challenge it, to go beyond it and create something new.
That's what Nietzsche is all about, encouraging us to do just that. He doesn't want us to be passive consumers of knowledge. He wants us to be active creators.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just apply to philosophy, right? It's about art, science, relationships, even our own personal growth. Nietzsche, he wants us to approach everything with that spirit of active creation.
Becoming the authors of our own lives,
Mm.
not just following the scripts we've been handed. Now, one concept we haven't really touched on yet is nihilism. Most people think of nihilism as this negative thing, right? Despair. But Nietzsche, he seems to suggest that it can be a powerful force for change and growth.
He really believed that, yeah.
Yeah.
Nihilism, the whole idea that life is inherently meaningless, it could be a catalyst for creating new values. Imagine like a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble to
Right.
reveal the form inside. Or nihilism, in a way, it clears away all the debris of outdated beliefs, creates space for something new.
So not being afraid of that emptiness, that lack of inherent meaning, it's about using that as a springboard to create something that that truly resonates with us, with our experiences, our aspirations.
Exactly. Think of someone who's gone through a huge, like, upheaval in their life,
Hmm.
something that just shattered their old worldview. They could try to cling to the pieces, try to force things back together, or they could take that opportunity to create something new, something more authentic.
It's like taking ownership of how we create meaning, becoming the architects of our own belief system.
Precisely. And that takes courage,
Right.
right? Honesty and a willingness to look inward, to really examine what we value and why.
Nietzsche also talks a lot about self-overcoming. What does he even mean by that? Is it just like a fancy way to say self-improvement?
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's not just learning new skills or breaking bad habits. It's about facing those parts of ourselves that are holding us back. The fears, the insecurities, those beliefs that keep us from really living fully, authentically. It's about pushing beyond our comfort zones to become, I don't know, the best versions of ourselves.
So it's not like a destination, right? It's a
It's a
process.
continuous process.
Yeah.
Yeah, a journey of self-discovery, of growth that really never ends.
Which brings us back to the Übermensch, this figure who seems to like embody this ideal of self-overcoming.
Right, and it's important to remember the Übermensch isn't meant to be a literal goal, something we can check off a list. It's more, I don't know, like a guiding principle,
Yeah.
the embodiment of human potential for growth, for creativity, for self-transcendence.
Like a North Star almost, something to guide us, to inspire us, to remind us
Mhm.
that we're capable of so much more than we realize.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about Nietzsche's philosophy. It's a call to action, an invitation to step into our power, to embrace our potential, to create a life that is truly meaningful, fulfilling.
Well, this has been quite the deep dive into Nietzsche. Challenging, yes, but incredibly inspiring too. He doesn't give us easy answers, that's for sure, but he does give us a lot to think about, to grapple with, and ultimately to weave into our own lives.
I agree. I agree. He challenges us to question everything, to embrace those complexities, the contradictions, and to live with a fierce kind of passion and authenticity. It's a philosophy that demands a lot from us, but it also offers the possibility of a truly transformative and empowering way of being in the world.
And on that note, as we wrap up our deep dive, I think it's fitting to leave you with a final thought from Nietzsche himself. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. So, as you reflect on everything we've explored here, I encourage you to ask yourself, what is your why? What drives you? What gives your life meaning and purpose? Once you discover that, you might find you have the strength to face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and create a life that is truly worth living.